was a woman of fire and resilience, a leader who stood against apartheid horrors. But her legacy is also one of controversy and division. Winnie Mandela's life cannot be summarized in simple terms. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and moral complexities. Let's delve into the life of a woman who became an icon for better or worse in South Africa's fight for freedom. Born in 1936 in the rural Eastern Cape, Winnie grew up in a world divided by apartheid. After studying social work, Winnie moved to Johannesburg, where she met Nelson Mandela, a prominent anti-apartheid leader. Their marriage was a partnership of ideals, but apartheid tore their lives apart. Nelson Mandela was arrested in 1962, and Winnie was left to raise her two daughters while becoming a voice for the oppressed. Winnie didn't simply carry Nelson's torch. She became a leader in her own right. As a prominent figure in the African National Congress, the ANC, she organized protests, mobilized communities, and defied apartheid laws. Her speeches and presence inspired millions to resist the regime, even as she faced brutal repression herself. The apartheid government viewed her as a dangerous enemy. She was repeatedly imprisoned, subjected to solitary confinements, and exiled to a remote town. Yet, Winnie remained defiant, symbolizing the resilience of Black South Africans under apartheid. However, Winnie activism took a darker turn. During the 1980s, she formed the Mandela United Football Club, a club originally meant to protect her, but which became associated with violent acts, including the abduction and killing of a 14-year-old Stampy Sipho. Her public rhetoric also grew more militant. Statements such as advocating for necklacing, a brutal method of punishing suspected informants, drew both fear and criticism. While many understood her anger and frustration driving her actions, others saw them as crossing a moral line. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission later condemned her for human rights violations, creating a stark divide in how she was remembered. To some, she remained the mother of the nation. To others, she became a symbol of moral complexities in the struggle for freedom. When Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, the world rejoiced, and Winnie Mandela stood by his side. But their years apart had taken a toll. Their marriage, once a symbol of resistance, began to unravel. In 1996, the two divorced, a painful chapter in their personal lives that played out in public view. Even after their separation, Winnie remained closely tied to Nelson Mandela's legacy and the broader story of South Africa's liberation. Her connection to him was both a source of strength and a shadow she could never fully escape. Despite her controversies, Winnie Mandela's defiance against apartheid earned her admiration worldwide. She became a global symbol of resistance, often celebrated as the fierce warrior who refused to be silenced. Her story resonated with women and oppressed communities far beyond South Africa's borders. Winnie's legacy remains a polarizing one. To some, she was an uncompromising voice of the oppressed. To others, her actions during the struggle reflect the moral ambiguities of fighting injustice with questionable means. Winnie Mandela's life reminds us that history is rarely black and white. She was a woman of extraordinary strength, yet deeply human in her flaws. Her story challenges us to grapple with the complexities of justice, leadership, and the cost of freedom. By and large, Winnie Mandela was an exceptional woman. Under intense pressures, and difficulties that we may not be able to understand, she stood strong and fought the oppression. We can sit here today and condemn some of the things that she did, but what could we have done in her situation? This is not an attempt to praise her or condemn her, but to recognize that she was a force to be reckoned with, and that her contribution in the fight for freedom against the apartheid were extraordinary. Let's also remember that today there are countless of women like her who are being oppressed across many places in Africa, who have to fight for freedom under difficult circumstances. What do you think of Winnie Mandela's legacy? Should we celebrate her contributions while acknowledge her flaws? I think so. Join the conversation in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share as we continue to explore the lives of Africa's history makers.